back, everybody, to another edition of the AI-driven PM. So excited to have you along on this journey with me. I'm your host, Rick Morris, as we start to navigate how AI can impact all of the different PMs. And when we say PM, we mean project management, portfolio management, program management, people management, practice management, all of the different Ps that we can come up with in terms of how AI can help drive and help us. Today, we're going to be discussing how ChatGPT in particular, and again, we're not only limiting ourselves to ChatGPT, we will do models with Copilot, Gemini, and the other things that are out there as we continue to explore this podcast. But today, we're going to talk about how ChatGPT can be used as a thinking partner and as a way to assist in your day-to-day documents. And we've got several hands-on examples that we're going to go through today. But first, I wanted to get through a little bit of a theory around this because there's, again, a lot of fear around AI. I think a lot of the fear has to do with not using it or not having the ability to play with it, or even companies or organizations cautioning people of how to use it. And there's certainly some cautions that we have to ascertain and go through, but still a fantastic technology that really can enhance and help your day-to-day practice and your day-to-day life. But I want to get into a little theory here first I use it a lot to help write and to help generate content. People go, well, if you use a prompt and if AI is generating content, then how are we sure that it's not the same content that somebody else would put out? In fact, my wife asked me that question. She's like, how do you make this your own? And I thought that was a really, really great question. And the analogy I came up with, though, was writing my book. And so I've got several books that are on the market. Project Management That Works is one of those. And just talking about the experience of writing that book first. I was a brand new author. They weren't sure how I was going to write or that kind of stuff. So I did a proposal. I had a book agent. Amicom bought the rights to the book. But at first, they thought I would need a little bit of a stronger writing partner. And so they assigned a writing partner, Brett Sember, Brett McWhorter Sember, who a phenomenal person to work with. So she was my writing partner. So if you notice in the book, it says by Rick A. Morris with Brett McWhorter Sember. That's where Brett Sember came in. And so I initially wrote the book. I sent it to her. She had some additions, some changes. She changed some sentences. I'm not a very good writer in terms of proper English. Sometimes I write kind of how I speak. So there's a lot of those types of things that went into it. And so she helped structure and tease some things out, asked me some questions, and grew the book. And then we sent it to an editor. And the editor went through a whole nother process just like that. So by the time the book was done, it was 100% still my theory, still 100% of the message that I wanted to send. But were the words exactly as I wrote them? And that answer is unequivocally no. It absolutely wasn't even close to what I wrote. And so it went through at least 3, 4, or 5 iterations. As a matter of fact, when I first wrote the book, it was first person, and they asked me to write it more third person. And then you get into all these other conversations around like naming characters within the book and in structure of the format, and it's just a lot of stuff that happens. So I say all that to say that I think it's very similar when I'm doing this with ChatGPT. What's happening when I'm doing ChatGPT is it's my words, it's my prompt, and then it goes and generates some text. And I read it and I go, you know what? I'm not sure if I like this word, or maybe there's too many adjectives, or it's a little bit too formal. Maybe I want it to be a little bit less formal in the conversation. And so I'm now directing ChatGPT to rewrite again, my idea, my thought, my words. So at the end of the day, it is still 100% the message I want to send. It's still 100% of the idea that I'm trying to get across, but the words may not be exactly the way that I typed them. And I think it's exactly the same as most of the books that are on the market. And so that's where I understand, people are like, well, how do you make it your own? That's how you make it your own. Also, and we talked about this in the first episode, but I think where the creativity really begins is in the second, third, and fourth prompts. So normally you have an initial prompt that will then generate something back to you, and then you react to that, but you begin to coach ChatGPT on how you want that response to come back. And over time, that's where I think it really does make it yours. So the biggest thing that I say here is practice, play with it. You hear something called prompt engineering. And really what that just means is getting really good and understanding the prompts that you want to generate. And we're actually going to do a lot of those hands-on examples today. Today, in particular, I want to focus on summarizing documents. I want to talk about brainstorming documents, and I want to talk about writing out some paragraphs, and even some of the things or prompts that I've used in the past. Again, this is a podcast and YouTube format, so if you're listening to this, don't worry. I'm going to try to be highly descriptive of what's happening in ChatGPT. And then, of course, if you're watching it on YouTube, you'll see it go right along. So as I transition, I'm going to pull the screen up and start to share that. But in the meantime, let's hear a word from our sponsor, Centric Consulting.
In today's economy, leaders are looking for a different kind of consulting partner. A partner that will work with you to understand your culture, technology, and employees. A partner that will develop the solutions you need, not the solutions they know best. For us, it's never been about simply checking a box. Since we were founded in 1999, Centric Consulting has established a reputation for solving its clients' toughest problems by delivering flexible, tailored, cost-efficient solutions, all centered on the right outcomes for each business. It's all part of our mission to deliver an unmatched experience you won't get anywhere else. Centered on what's best for you, Centric is ready to guide you on the journey ahead.
And we're back here on the AI-driven PM. As you can see, we're sharing the screen. If you're listening to the podcast, again, I'll try to be highly descriptive. And I want to thank Centric Consulting for sponsoring the first season here of AI-driven PM. So let's get into it. I've got ChatGPT up. I actually have, I'm in 4.0, which is the latest version of ChatGPT. And we're just going to play with this a little bit today. So one of the first things I want to show you is around summarizing documents. And so I'm going to be cutting and pasting some things in here. And again, if anybody's interested, you can just reach out. Happy to give any of these prompts or any of the things that we did as these examples. Happy to supply those to you. You can reach out to me at rick.morris@centricconsulting.com is a great way to do it. And so in this first example, I have a huge summary list of requirements. And this came from an RFP years ago, but there was just a bunch of requirements for a project and portfolio management system. And so what I wanted to do just quickly is be able to summarize this. And this is where ChatGPT is fantastic, because you can put a large amount of text in and ask it to just give you the highlights. And it's just a great way, again, to wordsmith. So in this case, in the prompt, what I'm going to be putting in and saying, please summarize these requirements and help me choose the top 10. And then I actually just cut and paste directly from a large Excel sheet. So it doesn't have the format and structure and all those different things in here. It's just a lump sum amount of text here. But I'm going to say, hey, can you please summarize these requirements and help me choose the top 10 things I should be focusing on. And when I hit OK, it's going to go do its thing. So now it's going to take a second. It's going to begin to generate. It'll tell me, here is a summary of the requirements organized by their categories with the top 10 selected based on critical impact on project management and control. Now, your first question may become, where is it understanding the critical impact on project management and control? And that, of course, is based on the model that's been trained throughout. So you may disagree with these, but again, this is just your first take at helping me summarize what I'm looking at. So I can see the project controls. It helps me with workflows. Project management. So it actually did some categorizing. It's still generating here, but it's not necessarily focusing yet on the top 10. It says with the top 10 selected based on their critical impact. So I'm looking to see where it's going to do that for me. It's still kind of putting everything into categories here for me. It looks like it's almost as if it's retyping everything that I put in to understand it. Which is interesting. We'll take a look at this as it goes. But again, sometimes when you put things into ChatGPT, it doesn't necessarily do everything that you're asking. But here it actually did complete and finish. So what it did was kind of retype out all of the things into a structured format, maybe for itself to read a little bit better. And then it gave me the top 10 requirements that were selected. So it's a checklist by stage gate, a system generated project health analysis with PM comments, a risk log, toll gates manually approved by PMO based on PM feedback. So these are different things that it decided or thought it was really good. But I could say in this case, and again, for an example, I could say, uh, please select another 10 as financial metrics are most important to this organization. And again, I don't know if this is true. I'm just showing this from a prompting perspective that once I have a result, I can say, you know what? It's not quite right. Here's a little bit of an adjustment I would like. Please do it again. And as I do that, it'll say, hey, given the emphasis on financial metrics, here are 10 additional requirements focusing on those areas. So it now is saying, hey, I've already picked the top 10. So sometimes we get into arguments with ChatGPT. I think it's funny. It's like, yeah, I already gave you 10. Here's an additional 10 because you're asking for it. But it went and found the actual requirements, and it's keeping those words there. And then again, because we're talking about summarizing, can you summarize in 2 paragraphs what the work is that we will be doing? And we'll just ask it something like that. And it's going to then write that out. So the project involves enhancing project management and financial oversight processes within the organization by implementing a series of structured requirements. Key activities will include creating and refining workflows, integrating essential financial and project data, and developing comprehensive reporting mechanisms. So again, very nice. Now, I could continue to wordsmith this or even cut and paste it into a document and then begin to adjust it. Now, here is one big word of caution. When you ask it to do something, it generally does it. So if I ask ChatGPT to generate something, this is generative text. So there are times where you might get some weird results, or it's citing something or whatever. Always, always, always validate. I've got two war stories here for you on that one. First, there was actually a lawsuit. A lawyer had a paralegal draft a document. The paralegal used ChatGPT and asked it to cite case law. And it did. And that got submitted to the court. And the opposing attorney, in doing research around the case law, found out that the particular piece of case law that ChatGPT had cited did not exist. But it was so well written that it fooled the paralegal, and the attorney either didn't validate or didn't check or what have you, but it made its way into the court documents, which then prompted the lawyer almost lost his license at that point, and has now prompted legislation that the lawyers actually have to state whether or not ChatGPT was utilized in the brief, and if so, that they validated all the citings and references with the penalty of potential disbarment. So that's huge. I witnessed something in particular where I was doing some brainstorming, and a lot of times, and I showed you in the first episode that the project management that works bot is mine, and it has all of my writings. And a lot of times as I'm doing kind of brainstorming, I'll come up with a concept and I'll say, hey, go read through all of my documents and pull 2 or 3 quotes out of that support this. And in one particular time that I was doing this, it pulled out 2 quotes, and it stated, as Rick Morris says, in project management that works, AI will do XYZ. And I was like, whoa, AI was not even discussed in my book. So it went and generated stuff, but it cited me and it cited my book. So you do have to make sure that you read, make sure that you understand if there are citings or references to other materials, that you validate that they're real and that you're comfortable with that. So that is my word of warning. So with every great, advancement, sometimes there's some things that it opens up and you have to look at. So that's an example of summarization. Now, if I just want to get to a new bot, I can just click to this new chat up here, and we'll do another one. Again, I just want to go through a couple of different examples here for you to help out. So another one is like, I can give it some materials. Again, I try not to state client specifics. I try not to state anything that would be proprietary. So I try to scrub the information. For instance, let's say I was doing something for like Ford, and I'm not, and this doesn't represent Ford in any way, but let's just say I was doing something for Ford and I wanted to generate something. I, instead of saying Ford, would say an American automotive company, something of that sort, right? Instead of saying, I'm going to do something specific for like a utilities company, if there's a specific one, I could say an energy company, and maybe even say an energy company that produces electricity, right? And that's where I scrub certain things, and then I make sure that there's no proprietary information in that I'm just doing some generation. In this case, I want to show you like I've got an SOW that I want to write for a client. And so I'm asking ChatGPT, I said, please help me write an introduction to a scope of work for a client. I didn't mention the client. So the client wants us to assist in jump-starting their configuration of Microsoft Project Server and assist with strategy and migration from their existing system, which is Smartsheets. We will be providing expertise that will configure, train, migrate, and optimize the environment. So I give that prompt to ChatGPT, and it'll give me a draft introduction. And here it says, we are excited to partner with client name and jumpstarting the configuration of Microsoft Project Server, facilitating strategic migration from Smartsheets. Our goal is to provide comprehensive expertise that ensures a seamless transition, robust configuration, and optimized use of Microsoft Project Server. Now, as I read that, I go, you know what? There's a couple of extra adjectives there that I probably wouldn't be comfortable with. And I can just say now, you know what? Please rewrite and use fewer adjectives. And it'll do it again. So it'll write it again for me, and it says, we're pleased to partner with XYZ and assist with the migration from Smartsheets. Our aim is to provide the expertise needed for a smooth transition, effective configuration, and efficient use of Microsoft Project Server. Okay, you know what? That's much better. That's a great lead in. I've got it. Off we go. So again, I can just provide it a few details, let it type something back to me. I can then read that, ingest that, decide what I like. For another example, I can hear it say, please make this less formal. And it'll rewrite it again with a little bit more of a casual version. So we're excited to work with client name to get Project Server up and running to help you move over from Smartsheets, right? So a lot different language. Now, just for fun, because this is a podcast and we're learning and everything else, you could also do things like this, and this is where you can really play. Please rewrite as if you were a pirate, and let it rewrite that paragraph as if, and it says it even better. I love that it jokes back with you because it says, aye, aye. Here be the introduction in true pirate style. Ahoy, client name. We be thrilled to sail alongside you as we set up Microsoft Project Server and chart the course away from Smartsheets. That's a horrible pirate accent, but you get my point. It pretty much will just respond back to what you want to do. So phenomenal stuff there in how that works. Now, one of the other ways we talk about brainstorming is you actually can tell ChatGPT to argue with you or to prepare you for a meeting. So in this case, let's say I have a difficult meeting that's coming up with a sponsor, and I've got to delay a date. And I could just say, hey, please be a difficult project sponsor who does not want to delay a date and role play the discussion with me. And again, it'll say, hey, let's get into character. I'll be the difficult project sponsor who doesn't want to delay the project date. You can start by expressing your concerns or proposing a delay, and I'll respond accordingly. So it even gives us the first piece. Hi, I wanted to discuss the project timeline with you. Given the current progress and some unforeseen challenges, I believe we need to extend the deadline. It says extend the deadline? That's out of the question. We've committed to this date and the stakeholders are expecting results. What exactly is the problem? And so let me answer that. I'll say there are several concerns, but first, and this is an actual thing that I would ask a client in this regard. I would say, can I understand the significance of the current date selected? Why did we pick that date? Let's see what ChatGPT has to say about that. It says, hey, the current date was selected because it aligns with our strategic goals and market opportunities. We have a major project launch that this project supports, and delaying it would mean missing a crucial window in the market. Our competitors are also gearing up for their launches, so we need to stay ahead. Additionally, key stakeholders have planned their activities, investments around this timeline. We simply cannot afford to push it back. Now, what are these concerns you're talking about? Great question. I'll say, is there additional budget then available to secure some additional key resources to maintain the timeline? Additional budget, we're already operating. Boy, ChatGPT's on it. I think I've had this conversation before because the sponsor saying additional budget, we're already operating on a tight budget. We just can't throw more money at the problem. We need to make do with what we have. Besides, bringing in new resources at this stage could create more disruptions than benefits. So we need solutions that work within our current constraints. What exactly are these key challenges that are causing the delay? Say, we are behind in testing. So we either need to invest in more resources to test or to move the date. Which is most appropriate for you? And ChatGPT says, falling behind in testing is concerning, but as I said, moving the date is not an option. We cannot afford the market impact of today. So let's explore some alternatives. Can we reallocate existing resources to focus on testing? Are there non-critical tasks that we can deprioritize or streamline to free up for testing? Additionally, can we consider extended hours or weekends for the team to catch up? We need to exhaust all possible options before we even think about extending the deadline. So again, you get the point. But if I was really nervous about this, this is actually giving me, it's not a pushover, and it's not really it even brought me back where I didn't answer a question specifically, and it was, it was asking me what the delays were, and I kind of sidestepped that for a moment and asked it a question. It answered but brought me back to it. So I think it's pretty cool. Again, you may never use it in this context, but it's just another way or example in which this can help benefit you as you go forward. Let's do another example. So let's say that I'm creating a new risk assessment, and I've got several different categories, but I want degrees of those categories. So, for instance, for scope, I need to understand what's like low, what's medium, what's high, those types of things. And so again, I'm just brainstorming at this moment. I know I need to create it. I'm having a little bit of writer's block to get started. And a lot of times for me, I just need that little push to get started. And so again, ChatGPT is a great friend in that area. So I can say define 5 degrees of risk in projects ranging from very low to very high for the following areas. And I said scope, technical, compliance, change management. Provide the output in a table format for me. So as I do that, it'll come in and it's going to analyze that for me. And then it'll start to generate. So now that it's done, it actually gives it to me in a table format, which is now a little bit interactive. I can expand it. I can also download the table, this is new in ChatGPT 4.0, because we used to just have to like cut and paste out of it, or it would give me like Python code or something of that sort to do. But it does give me this very low, and here's my risk level. The table outlining 5 degrees of risk and across scope, technical, compliance, and change management is as follows. And it did it for me. It gave me very low. So if I just read one of those for people that are listening to this podcast and can't see the screen, so scope very low said minimal impact to project scope, no additional resources needed. A low was minor scope changes, minimal additions. Moderate was moderate scope changes, some additional resources and time required. High was significant scope changes, substantial additional resources and time needed. And very high, major scope changes. Now, that's very loose language. I could say, please rewrite, and let's just do this one time. We'll do please rewrite and suggest specific metrics that could be measured to establish the degrees. So let's just see what it does with that. So give me a revised version of the table. So perfect. So now it's kept the definition of like very low, minimal impact on project scope, no additional resources needed, but then it introduced this metrics. Number of scope change requests, 0 to 1, versus low is 2 to 3, moderate is 4 to 6, high is 7 to 10, and very high is greater than 10. And again, as we go through these, I may agree or disagree with these, but at least gives me the initial impact. Now, interestingly enough, it'll only kind of generate this table kind of the first time. So I would still end up cutting and pasting this or asking it to generate it in a table from here. But again, you get the point. And I'll do one more example here as we are wrapping up this episode. And this one is a very personal one to me. So I do a lot of software development type projects. I love the agile creation. And what I love is the user stories, personas, understanding those. What I don't like, and it's not that I don't like, it's just I'm a very ADD brain. So writing out acceptance criteria and step-by-step testing things and those types of things can be just take me a lot longer than they should because my mind wanders as I go through it. And so in this case, this is a full prompt. And again, if you want to see any of these prompts, you're just ping me. It's rick.morris@centricconsulting.com. Happy to share. But in this one, I was like, hey, please create code for an Excel spreadsheet. So I'm being very, very specific here from the following input. Also, in the code, it should save the file into my C drive under a scripts folder. Please create the columns for persona, feature, user story, test case, acceptance criteria, and metrics. In the user story column, please create the user story using the persona and feature from the following inputs. And I give it the persona and the feature. And then I say, then create the acceptance criteria for each user, then create a test case, then create metrics and or suggest metrics. So I'm going to tell it to go do that. It's going to think here for a second as it begins to analyze, and then it'll give me the output. And here comes the output. So it says, I've created an Excel spreadsheet with the specified columns and data. The file has been saved to C, scripts, user story. If you need further assistance, this is interesting because what I'm used to it doing is giving me Python code. And so now I actually need to go and I'll do this really quickly here. So I'm going to go to C, and I'm doing this offline. I'll bring it over. But we got C, we got then scripts. And then sure enough, here it says user stories. If I double click the user stories, we'll give that a second here to pull up. And it's actually now created. Here's the user story. As a user, I want to log in with Facebook, so that gives me a test case. User performs the following steps, gives me acceptance criteria, and gives me metrics. Now, again, this would just be the starting portion of their persona and the feature. What's interesting, and this is a surprise for me as I'm doing this, live with y'all, 4.0 seems to have an integration directly now to be able to create the Excel spreadsheet. So previous gave me a Python code that would then I would have to go put into Python. And at that point, just as a sidebar to that, with the Python code, I didn't know how to do it. And so I asked ChatGPT. I was like, well, I see that you gave me Python code. How do I do it? And it walked me through step by step, installing it, making sure that it was set up properly, and all of that kind of stuff. It's phenomenal what you can do when you have ChatGPT as a thinking partner. So today we went through summarizing documents, using ChatGPT as your thinking partner, and really seeing how that can begin to advance. So your homework is to go try some of these things. Put some stuff in that you never thought of. If you want to know something about a topic, actually, a lot of times as I'm in meetings, if I hear an acronym, I'm not sure what it is, or I hear them talking or referencing a process, I'm not sure what it is, I just simply write that down, and then I'll go to ChatGPT after the meeting and type it in and have it educate me. At one point, I was dealing with some very scientific things I really didn't know, and I even told ChatGPT, hey, could you explain this to me as if I was a college student, just so it would kind of dumb down the language a little bit because it was way over my head when I first got it. So all of those things are things you can do with AI, which makes us helps drive our PM abilities. Again, my goal, if you heard the first episode, is I'm trying to reduce the amount of time we do things in arrears or non-value add. So sometimes summarizing documents or coming up with some of these things aren't necessarily, we have to do them, but they're not necessarily value added decisions that we need to be making as project managers. So hopefully you've seen today some examples of how ChatGPT can help accelerate some of these tasks that are absolutely necessary that we have to get done, but hopefully maybe get done a little bit faster. That's it for this episode of the AI Driven PM. Tune in next time as we'll dive in deeper on how you can use AI to accelerate your PM capabilities. Talk to you again soon.